Set is Daniel Manduku, the Managing Director of the Kenya Ports Authority, to talk about that story, the development going on in Lamu, as well as the development going on here at the port of Mombasa. Thank you so much indeed for joining us this evening. 24-hour, kind of cycle that you have here. It's almost 9:30 and there's still work going on here. How much cargo are you handling?
I think first I want to welcome you to Mombasa.
Thank you.
And welcome the whole country to this year's Mashujaa Day in Mombasa. We feel privileged that you're able to come and have the event in Mombasa. Anyway, the Kenya Ports Authority is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operations. With about 7,000 employees, we work on 3 shifts a day, 8 hours each. And this is because we've witnessed increase in cargo. This year alone, January to September, our container traffic grew by 10.7%. And we're projecting that by the end of the year, we'll surpass our target of 1.3 million 20-foot equivalent units to probably settle at 1.4 million.
Yes.
In terms of total throughput, this year we are projecting to handle about 32 million tons of throughput, but with a sustained growth of 9.6%, we project that we'll hit just below 34 million tons. Now, that means one thing, that we must expand.
Yes.
Because from our projections and from our master plan, we will be at 42 million tons the next 3 years. And the current capacity that we have, both in container traffic and bulk cargo, cannot sustain that growth. And so we must always be ahead of the game. And I've just come from the TICAD 7 in Japan. And it was highlighted that among the ports on the eastern coast of Africa, the Kenya Ports Authority is the one that is leading in terms of vision and in terms of expansion programs.
Yes. Let's talk about expansion, because you're building the second phase, the container terminal, the second phase of the second container terminal right now going on. And one of the activities around it is the dredging that has brought a lot of issues around, how it's affecting the ocean and the ecosystem within it. How are you responding to that, and why are you insisting on doing that regardless?
I think before I answer your question, I must put you in context that Mombasa Port is the beginning of a corridor, a transport corridor, all the way from Mombasa to Uganda. In fact, on to Rwanda. We commonly call it the Northern Corridor. And along the corridor, there are a lot of logistic players, and the Kenya Ports Authority is key because it's the entry point. And for us to sustain the growth that we expect, we must rapidly expand. In fact, where we are today is our latest terminal. We call it container terminal number 2.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the construction of the terminals, we must eat into the sea. We must reclaim land, because we are on reclaimed land today. Now, across the other side, we are expanding the container terminal number 2, so that we can have an additional capacity of 450,000 TEUs, and the 2 terminals will make 1 million TEUs in terms of capacity. Now, that means that we want to attract larger vessels, because larger vessels have got economies of scale, and developed countries will want to use larger vessels so they can cut down on costs. Now, larger vessels also require that you must berth in deep waters, and that is why Lamu has an advantage, because Lamu is naturally a deep natural harbour with 18 meters minus 18 meters below the ground.
Yes.
At the port of Mombasa, we are talking of between 12 to 14 meters natural depth. And so for us to be able to attract the large vessels, we must dredge. And dredging means excavation below the sea.
All right. The other issue that has come about is how the moving of cargo from the port to, onwards, Nairobi and where else they head to, has affected the local economy. So people are saying here that the transport business that was very big here is no longer big because SGR has taken much of the business. So this growth that you're talking about is actually...
Let me tell you that
level of
from where we sit, we know that all over the world there's a model split between road and rail. And the best practice is that the rail should evacuate at least 40% of the cargo in most developed economies. And that is our target. We are targeting towards a 40% minimum evacuation. And as I told you, we are the start of a corridor. And along the corridor, there are many logistic players. Now, what has been happening in Mombasa before is that because of logistical inefficiencies, because of infrastructural deficiencies, there were backlogs. And backlogs meant delays. And along the chain, because of the delays, there were a lot of inefficiencies that were created. And because of that, of course, people in transport made more money because the truck would take 3 days to Nairobi. People in storage made money because they would store the container. Even us, the port, we made money storing. Now we don't make anything storing. And so, while we understand that business may have gone down, we must also appreciate that efficiency has gone up.
Okay.
Today, there's a ship berthed on berth 21. It came at 10 a.m. this morning. It is supposed to leave the day after tomorrow. But because we've been able to evacuate all the cargo tonight, it is leaving tomorrow, 24 hours ahead.
All right.
And before it leaves, all its Nairobi-bound containers will be in Nairobi.
Okay.
We are now doing what we call X-hook. We take from the vessel to the train. I call that efficiency. So
in one word then, what are you telling the residents of this?
We're saying that,
this county?
And luckily today, the president has launched a new project, the Special Economic Zone. We must look for, and we are looking for, and we are supporting new avenues of job creation, which are sustainable, which are dependable, and which also have high value. And I think that's the way to go.
All right. The other issue around this port is the construction of the Kipevu oil terminal, all right? Because there was a budget and then it grew threefold. And then there were controversies around it in terms of the tendering.
Let me say this.
Into 40 billion shillings.
This is a matter that is under investigation.
Yes.
And we trust that the agencies have done a very good and thorough job. But let me tell you this. The project was conceived many years ago. And over the years, the scope changed from one terminal to 2 terminals, and now we have 4 terminals. The requirements also changed from purely importing crude to importing crude and refined to even having an export channel, because we also discovered oil. So the scope changed, the size changed. Obviously, budget had to change.
Okay.
What I can tell you is that by the time we went to tender, the estimate on the table and the tender price were matching. And so I think it is lack of proper information out there.
So you're saying there was no money lost, there was no fraudulent
zero.
Kind
Zero.
of approach?
From where I sit, zero.
All right.
Yes.
Where do you see yourself as Kenya Ports Authority in the next, say, 5 years? Because we are having Mombasa Tanzania building their own, so that's a bit of competition. We are having Lamu as well coming up.
I think
which is very big.
What I can appreciate is that with the development of Lamu, we expect some business to go to Lamu, which is our sister port. So in a way, there'll be some cannibalism, especially around transshipment. Mombasa Port alone this year has experienced a 136% growth in transshipment. So we expect a lot of transshipment to Lamu. But then in terms of regional competition, you know, you guys talk about Tanzania, Dar es Salaam. This morning, there were 9 ships waiting to berth in Tanzania. I have the data. 9 vessels, and some of them have been there for a week, waiting to berth. In our waters here, we don't have a single vessel waiting to berth. Since I came to the port of Mombasa 16 months ago, we have not paid a single dollar into what we call vessel delay surcharge. That means there's no maritime penalty for delaying vessels. We berth on time, we leave on time.
Okay.
So,
all right.
When talking about competition, it must be like for like.
All right. In one sentence, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Our target is to be a seaport of choice in the region. But for me, we hope that by the end of this year, we'll be the 3rd best port in Africa. And eventually, in 5 years, we should be the best port in Africa. In terms of throughput, in terms of efficiency,
yes,
and in terms of trade facilitation.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Daniel Manduku is the Managing Director of the Kenya Ports Authority, speaking to us about the development projects around this place, the second container terminal going on right now, the Kipevu oil terminal, as well as the issue of the SGR and the development of the Lamu Port as well.